Dear learners, welcome to the Unit 29 of Module 9 of MOOC course on Rural Development in India. We know that education is universally recognized as a powerful instrument for individual growth and national development. In a country like India, where nearly two-thirds of the population resides in rural areas, the development of rural education becomes the crucial not only for educational equity but also for social justice, economic progress, and democratic participation. Rural education in India operates within a complex web of socio-economic, cultural, geographical, and infrastructural challenges. Understanding its conceptual foundation, current status, and influencing factors is essential for us and for the educators, policymakers, teacher training, and the learners of education. In this video session, we will discuss the meaning, scope, status, and the challenges of rural education in India. Let's start with the meaning of rural education. Rural education refers to the system of education designed for and delivered in the rural areas, addressing the specific needs, realities, and aspirations of the rural populations. It includes both formal education, like in school or colleges, and non formal education, like adult literacy, continuing education, and the informal learning, also, which includes the community knowledge, traditional skills, etc. Rural education is not merely about the location of the school, but it is about socio-economic background of the learners, then cultural practices and tradition, and occupational patterns like agriculture, daily wage labor, or craft. And it also about limited access to resources and infrastructure. For example, a rural primary school in a tribal village of Orissa or Assam doesn't only teach textbook knowledge but also adapt teaching to local languages, agricultural cycles, and community life. So, we should know about the areas or the scope of rural education in the study of rural education. So, it includes universalization of elementary education. The former scope of rural education is to ensure free, compulsory, and quality elementary education for all the children aged 6 to 14 years. It aims at improving the access, enrollment, retention, and completion of schooling in the rural areas through government initiatives like the Right to Education Act, midday meals, and school infrastructure development. It also includes adult literacy and lifelong learning. Rural education focuses on adult literacy program. Why? Because it aims at educating the non-literate adult and neo-literates. Lifelong learning opportunities help rural adults improve their functional literacy, numeracy, health awareness, and civic participation, and thereby enhance their quality of life and productivity. Then the rural education also include vocational and skill-based education as its scope. It emphasizes on the vocational and skill development aligned with the local needs such as the agriculture, handicraft, animal husbandry, and small-scale industries. Skill-based education promotes employment, self-reliance, and entrepreneurship among the rural youth. It also covers the area of women education. Women education is a crucial dimension of rural education that aimed at reducing the gender disparities, empowering women, and improving family welfare. Educated women contribute to the better health, nutrition, child education, and the social development, making women's education a key driver for the whole rural transformation. It also includes education for the marginalized and the disadvantaged group. Rural education tries to address the educational need of the SC, ST communities, minorities, economically weaker section, and children with disabilities. It emphasizes inclusive education practices through scholarship, hostel, special incentives, and supportive learning environment. So these are the scopes or the areas of study under rural education. Now we must know what are the digital and distance education initiative for rural education. With the advancement of technology, rural education now includes digital and distance learning initiative to overcome geographical barriers. Online platform, virtual classroom, educational television, and open and distance learning institution help extend the educational opportunities to remote and undeserved rural areas. Rural education plays a vital role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 4, SDG 4, that is the inclusive and equitable quality education for all. Now let's make a critical analysis between rural and urban education system. It will help you and us to know what are the basic differences between the rural education and urban education in terms of some dimension. So in terms of infrastructure, rural education often inadequate. But in the terms of infrastructure, urban education are generally well developed. In terms of teacher availability, we can see shortage of trained teachers in rural education, whereas we can find adequate numbers of trained staff in the urban education system. In terms of medium of instruction, we can see that local and regional languages are often used in rural education, whereas English as well as regional languages are offered as a medium of instruction in the urban education system. In terms of technology access, in the rural education it is limited, but in the urban education the use of technology and access is high. Then the parental support, if we see in the rural education system, it is found as low literacy level, whereas higher educational awareness is found in the urban education system. And in a school type, multi-grade single teachers are often found in the rural education system, whereas subject-wise teachers are available in urban education system. So we can make a comparison between rural and urban education in terms of these dimensions or aspects. For example, an urban secondary school may have separate teachers for physics, chemistry, and mathematics, while a rural school teacher may teach all the subjects across multiple grades. Now, let's discuss education as a tool of rural development and social sense. How education can play a very important and a crucial role in the rural development and bring social changes in the rural areas. We know that education acts as a powerful catalyst for rural transformation by equipping individuals with essential knowledge, skills, and values that improve their personal lives as well as the overall development of the rural society. It helps in the terms of improvement of agriculture productivity. Education helps the farmers understand modern agricultural techniques such as the improved seeds, crop rotation, irrigation method, and use of fertilizers, etc. So, literacy and basic education enable farmers to read instruction, access government schemes, and adopt better farm management practices, which can lead to increased productivity and income in the rural education system or rural areas. Then it also helps in adoption of scientific practices. Educated rural individuals are more likely to adopt scientific and rational approaches in agriculture, health, and their daily life also. Education can reduce dependence on superstitions and traditional belief and encourages them to make use of technology, evidence based method, and innovative technique for problem solving of their daily lives. Then education also helps in terms of health and sanitization awareness. Education can create awareness about personal hygiene, nutrition, clean drinking water, immunization, and sanitization practices. Literate individuals can understand the health messages and they can also follow medical advices and participate in public health program, and it can lead to reduce diseases and improve their quality of life in the rural areas. Then education can also play a very important role by making participation in democratic processes by the rural people. It can promote awareness of rights, duties, laws, and democratic values. Educated rural citizens can actively participate in Panchayati Raj institutions, local governance, voting system, and decision-making processes, and thereby it can strengthen their grassroots democracy and social justice. Now we can discuss how education can play a very important role in bringing social changes in the rural areas, because we know that education play a very vital role in bringing positive social changes by transforming attitude, values, and behavior in the society in the rural areas particularly. It can reduce the social evils like child marriage. We know that child marriage is a very common social manner that is practiced in the rural areas, especially in India. So, education can increase awareness about the legal age of marriage, health risk, and social consequences of child marriage. Educated individuals and families are more likely to oppose such practices and support continued education, especially for the girls. Then, education can also promote gender equality. It can help in changing traditional gender roles by promoting equal rights and opportunities both for the boys and the girls. Educated girls can gain confidence, decision making ability, and economic independence, which can lead to greater gender equality in families as well as in the communities. Then education can make the people aware about their rights and duties. Through education, individuals become aware of their constitutional right and civic responsibilities. This awareness encourages people to demand social justice, follow laws, and participate in the responsibly social and political lives. Then it can also help in development of leadership in Panchayati Raj institution. Education can develop leadership qualities among the people such as communication skill, critical thinking, and administrative awareness that are particularly required for Panchayati Raj institution. So, educated rural citizens, especially women, are better prepared to participate in the Panchayati Raj institution and contribute equally and effectively to the local governance and community development. For example, we can say that educated women involved in the self-help group, which we call as SHG, in rural Kerala or Assam, actively engage in micro entrepreneurship, financial decision making, and local governance demonstrating how education empowers women and strengthening their grassroots democracy. So this is about the education's role in bringing social changes and making the rural people more empowered to make their own decision of life. Now let's discuss to have a overview of the status of education in India, especially in the rural areas. So, what is the literacy rate of India at present? We know that literacy is an important indicator for educational development. So, India has made steady progress in improving literacy since independence, but inequalities still exist. The overall literacy rate is around 74%, with male literacy higher than the female literacy. So, a significant gap is always seen between rural and urban literacy, with rural areas lagging behind due to the poverty, limited access to school, and other socioeconomic factors. For example, Kerala has achieved near universal literacy, whereas many rural districts in central and eastern India continue to show low literacy level. So, what's the enrollment trend? Enrollment at the elementary level has improved considerably due to the government initiative or schemes like RTE Act, Midday Meal Scheme, or Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan or the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. So these programs have increased access and attendance in primary school. However, enrollment declined sharply at the secondary and the higher education level, especially in the rural areas, and it is due to the economic pressure, distance to school, and lack of motivation to learn. So it makes the dropout rates increase. So dropout remains a serious issue in Indian education, particularly in the rural region. Factors such as poverty, child marriage, migration, and poor quality of schooling compel the children to discontinue their education. For example, children from families working in a brick kilns or tea garden often migrate seasonally, and it leads to interrupted schooling and higher dropout rates. So, the current status of rural education, if we can see that we can find out that rural literacy is marked by gender gaps, regional disparities, and low adult literacy. Rural males generally have higher literacy rates than the females. Female literacy is often affected by the early child marriage, household responsibilities, and social restriction. Regionally, southern states perform better while northern and the central rural region lag behind. So rural areas show high enrollment at the primary level, but retention decreases after the upper primary stage. Dropout rates are highest at the secondary level. Economic pressure, long distance to school, and poor learning outcome are the main reason for this trend. Then transition from primary to upper primary education is relatively high due to the increased school availability. However, transition to secondary education to moderate and progression to higher education remains low. So we can see that many rural students complete class 8 but discontinue education due to the absence of nearby secondary school or financial constraint. So we can find a comparison between the urban and the rural education system in terms of the indicators. Urban education perform better than the rural education in terms of infrastructure, teacher availability, learning resources, and transition rates. Urban students also have greater access to private school and coaching facilities, whereas rural education continues to struggle with the issue of quality, continuity, and access. Then, what is the status of teacher and teacher quality in rural education? We can find that rural education often face a shortage of trained and subject specific teachers, which is a common and a most important challenge of rural education. Many teachers are unwilling to work in the remote areas due to the poor living condition and lack of facilities, resulting in a high reliance on a contract or temporary teacher. Then teacher-student ratio is another important challenges of rural education system. Although education policies prescribe an appropriate teacher-student ratio, many rural schools suffer from overcrowded classroom or situation where a single teacher handles multiple classes, and this finally affect the quality of teaching. Then teacher absenteeism is another important challenges of rural school system. Long travel distances, inadequate supervision, and poor residential facilities discourages the regular attendance and thereby it affects the student learning. Then multi-grade and single teacher school is widespread in rural India. Teachers often manage students of different grades in the same classroom, and this lead to challenges such as curriculum overload, lack of training, and classroom management difficulties. For example, a single teacher teaching class 1 to 5 simultaneously in a village school, and this will obviously disrupt the quality of education. Then professional development opportunities are limited for the in-service teachers in the rural areas. In-service training, workshop, and professional development program are limited in terms of the rural teachers. Digital initiatives such as Diksha and online MOOCs can help bridge this gap by providing remote training opportunities. Okay. So, besides this, there are some other challenges in terms of access and equity in rural education. Number one is gender disparities. Girls in rural areas experience lower enrollment and higher dropout rates at the secondary level due to the household responsibilities, safety concerns, and lack of sanitation facilities. Then, education for the marginalized group face educational barriers due to poverty, social exclusion, and discrimination and language difficulties. Government schemes such as scholarship, free textbook, and hostel aim to improve their access to education. Then the rural areas lack inadequate facilities for children with disabilities, including special school or educators, assistive devices, and inclusive infrastructure. Although inclusive education policies exist, but effective implementation remains limited in the rural areas. There are some other challenges also in terms of rural education. Educational development varies across region. Backward and rural region face multiple disadvantages such as poor infrastructure, teacher shortage, and high poverty level, which negatively impact the educational outcome. It can lead to socioeconomic and cultural barriers in the rural education system. For example, poverty forces many rural children to engage in agricultural work, domestic labor, or informal employment, making education a secondary priority for survival. Then, migration of the families disrupt children's education, leading to irregular attendance and school dropout. Then the low level of parental literacy limit academic support at home and reduce aspiration for the higher education, which can affect the children's educational achievement. Then social custom, early marriage, and gender role. This custom and rigid gender role restrict the girls' mobility and educational aspiration. Early marriage continues to be a major obstacle to girls' education in rural areas. Then another challenge of rural education is language barrier and medium of instruction. Many rural children face difficulties when instruction is provided in a language unfamiliar to them, and this lead to the poor comprehension and learning outcome. For example, tribal children taught in a non-tribal or dominant language often struggle academically. So these are the key challenges that are often seen in terms of rural education, especially in India. So now we have to discuss, or now we have to find out some of the means through which rural education or the system can be developed and upgraded, and the tool is the education. In the digital era, education has expanded beyond traditional classroom and has become a powerful instrument for rural development and social transformation. Through the use of technology, digital platform, and innovative learning method. So number one is digital learning platform. Online platforms like Diksha, Shayam, ePachala, or MOOCs can provide rural learners access to quality educational content irrespective of the geographical barriers. Then the ICT enabled teaching learning process can also help the rural learners to make their education successful one. The ICT enable technology like the smart classroom, digital board, educational app, and virtual classroom can enhance teaching effectiveness and learner engagement in the rural school, even with limited teaching staff. Then distance and open learning system is another important means through which the learners of the rural areas can have flexible educational opportunities for their education, and it can also help the working adult women who cannot attend regular institution. This mode support lifelong learning and skill development for the rural areas. Then the digital literacy and skill development. Education in the digital era promotes digital literacy. It enables rural population to use smartphone, computers, and the internet. And this help individual access online banking, government services, agricultural information, and employment opportunities. Then online vocational and skill-based training is another means for development of rural education. Digital education platform provide online training in the areas like agriculture, technology, entrepreneurship, handicraft, and self-employment skill. And this can support income generation and rural economic development. Then e-governance and civic awareness. Education through digital media can spread awareness about the right, duties, government scheme, and democratic processes. And rural citizens can actively participate in the Panchayati Raj institutions and local governance through digital tools. Then digital health and sanitization education. Through online campaign, mobile apps, and educational videos, rural population can gain awareness about their health, nutrition, hygiene, and sanitation. And it can contribute to improve public health and social well-being. Then social inclusion is also possible through the digital education. Digital education can promote inclusion of women, marginalized groups, and children with disabilities by providing accessible, flexible, and inclusive learning opportunities designed to diverse needs. So we can say that in the digital era, education acts as a transformative force for the rural development and social change by expanding access, improving equity, providing and promoting inclusion, and empowering rural communities through technology driven learning. And we have now we are talking about the NEP 2020, and this policy has also given special emphasis to the development of rural education with the aim of ensuring equitable access, quality and inclusion of learners living in rural, remote, and disadvantaged areas, recognizing long-standing rural-urban disparities in infrastructure, teacher availability, digital access, and learning outcome. NEP 2020 had proposed systematic reform to strengthen rural areas or education, like in terms of universal access and equity, then early childhood care and education, ECCE, then mother tongue and local context, then teacher availability and professional development, etc. So, to conclude this session, we can state that rural education in India stands at the crossroads of progress and persistent challenges. While significant achievements have been made in expanding access and enrollment, issues like quality, equity, teacher availability, socioeconomic barriers, and cultural constraints continue to affect learning outcomes in the rural areas. So, strengthening rural education requires context sensitive policies, community participation, teacher empowerment, and inclusive practices. Education, when effectively delivered, has the potential to perform and transform rural India into a space of empowered citizens, sustainable livelihood, and social justice. For learners of education or the others a subject of social science, understanding rural education is very much essential not only for academic success but also for contributing meaningfully to nation building. So, dear learners, this is for today. Thank you so much for your patient listening.